I wake up at 5:47 a.m. every day. Not because I need to, because my body refuses to learn new tricks. The kettle clicks off by itself. I forget it's on half the time now, but not today. Today, everything works the way it's supposed to, which, in hindsight, should have worried me. I butter toast with the carefulness of a man who lives alone and has learned that crumbs become accusations. The radio murmurs something about traffic on a 90. I don't listen. I never do. I stare at the small chip in the kitchen tile by the sink, the one Eleanor dropped a mug on in 2009, and think about how she'd hated that radio. Voices in the morning feel like trespassing, she used to say. The phone buzzes at 6:12. Mark Russell Esq. Don't go home. Call me. I read twice, then a third time, slower, like the words might rearrange themselves into something sensible. Mark Russell doesn't text like that. Mark Russell sends emails with bullet points and subject lines like Revised Trust Amendment v3. Mark Russell doesn't do urgency. He bills it by the hour. I text back, I am home. 3 dots appear. Disappear. Reappear. Then don't leave, he writes. Whatever you do, that's when I laugh. A small, dry sound. The kind you make when you don't want to believe your life has taken a sharp left without asking permission. I'm 71 years old. I've worked 46 years as a civil engineer. I've buried my wife. I've buried my younger brother. I've paid off this house twice, once with the bank, once with my spine. Nobody tells me not to go home. At 7:03, I lock the front door, pat my pocket for keys like superstition, and drive to the pharmacy for Eleanor's old vitamins that I keep forgetting to stop refilling. Habit is cheaper than grief. The parking lot smells like wet asphalt and burnt coffee. Inside, fluorescent lights hum like insects. A woman argues about her insurance copay. A kid knocks over a rack of cough syrup. Normal life. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself. It waits until you're distracted by banal nonsense. When I get back, the house looks the same from the outside. White siding, blue shutters Eleanor chose because they looked honest. The maple tree out front still drops, leaves like it's doing me a favor. The first thing I notice is the smell. Not rot, not smoke. Cologne. Sharp. Expensive. Something young men, when they want to be taken seriously, buy mirrors. I stop in the entryway. My shoes are where I left them. But there's another pair by the bench. Brown leather. Size larger than mine. Clean soles. I don't own brown leather shoes. The second thing is the sound. Water. Running. From upstairs. I stand there longer than I should. Long enough for my knees to start complaining. Long enough for the house to feel unfamiliar in that quiet, predatory way hotels do at night. Hello? I call out. Nothing. I climb the stairs. One hand on the banister Eleanor polished every Sunday. My heart doing something stupid and fast. Halfway up, I see the door to the guest room open. That door stays shut. Always. It smells like old books and cedar and grief. Now it smells like citrus cleaner. At the top of the stairs, my bedroom door is wide open. My bedroom. There's a man sitting on my bed. Not slumped. Not ashamed. Comfortable. He's barefoot. His socks are on my chair. A woman stands by my dresser, holding one of Eleanor's scarves up to the light like it's fabric at a market. Oh, she says, smiling too quickly. You must be Harold. My name is Henry. Who are you? I ask, and my voice behaves, which surprises me. The man stands. He's maybe 35. Athletic in that way that suggests gym memberships and optimism. He sticks out his hand. Evan, we're renting. I look past him. The bedspread Eleanor picked out in 2016, the blue one with the faint stitching, has been replaced. Folded neatly on the floor like an inconvenience. Renting, I repeat. Yes, the woman says. Short term. She gestures vaguely, like my house is an Airbnb listing and not the place my wife learned to die. You're in my bedroom, I say. Evan laughs. Actually laughs. Yeah, sorry about that. The paperwork said primary suite access included. Paperwork. I feel something settle behind my ribs. Not anger. Recognition. I'm calling the police, I say. The woman's smile drops, just enough to show calculation. Maybe call your daughter first. That does it. I dial 911 with hands that finally start to shake. While I wait, Evan sits back down on my bed, like he's making a point. You really should have listened to your lawyer, he says casually. This is all legal. The police arrive in 12 minutes. 2 officers. Young. Polite. They ask for ID. I hand it over. Evan produces a lease agreement printed on heavy paper. The woman adds a folder. Tabs. Highlighting. I catch numbers as pages flip. $3,800 monthly. 6-month term. Signed 3 weeks ago. Signed by my daughter. When Mark Russell finally calls, it is 8:41 a.m. Henry, he says, and for the first time in 20 years, his voice isn't neutral. Where are you? In my house, I answer. Apparently not alone. He exhales, long controlled. I told you not to go home. I look at the strangers in my bedroom, at the police officers quietly conferring, at Eleanor's scarf still in that woman's hand. No, I say, you told me too late. And that's when I understand something very clearly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan, and I had paid for every step of it. By noon, police are gone. They leave with apologies, not solutions. Everything is civil. Everything is documented. Everything is someone else's problem now, including mine. I sit at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee that's gone cold and a stack of papers that smell like toner and confidence. The stranger's tenants, apparently, have retreated upstairs under an officer's suggestion to give everyone space. My house has become a shared workspace for mutually assured resentment. Mark Russell calls again at 12:14 p.m. Henry, he says, slower this time. Did you read the lease? I saw the numbers, I answer. I paid for the numbers. That's not the same thing. Mark has a way of talking that makes you feel like you've already failed a test you didn't know you were taking. The lease is valid, he continues, at least on its face. It's signed under the power of attorney you granted your daughter in 2021. I close my eyes. Of course it is. The power of attorney. The paperwork that didn't bleed. We did it in April. April 17th, 2021. A Tuesday. Rained all morning. Eleanor had been gone 8 months, and I was still losing words mid-sentence like loose change. My daughter, Claire, always careful to sound concerned, suggested it gently, like a favor I'd be doing her. Just in case, Dad, she'd said, stirring sugar into her coffee. 2 packets. She always used 2. If something happens and I need to sign something for you. I remember the smell of that cafe, burnt espresso and lemon cleaner. The lawyer she found wore socks with tiny anchors on them. He talked about streamlining and protecting assets and avoiding probate. I signed. I signed because I was tired. I signed because grief makes paperwork look like relief. I signed because I thought blood meant breaks. Mark didn't like it. He'd said as much. Limited power only, he warned me later. Medical decisions, not financial. But Claire had already arranged everything, already booked the appointment, already framed it as done. That's how she worked. She didn't push. She placed. By 2022, she was helping with bills. I noticed your utilities were high, she'd say, scrolling on her phone. Want me to consolidate? She set up autopay. She asked for access just to monitor. She talked about interest rates and tax efficiency like she was doing me a kindness. In November of that year, she convinced me to refinance. Rates are still decent, she said. You could pull equity, have a cushion. I didn't need a cushion. The house was paid off. I had savings, retirement accounts. Eleanor and I had been boring on purpose, but Claire had charts. We refinanced for $420,000. The money went into an account I didn't open. I noticed later, after the statements started going digital, after the mail stopped arriving the way it used to. By March 2023, she was transferring $8,500 here, $12,000 there. Investment opportunities, she said. Short-term liquidity, she said. Trust me. I did. Trust is cheap when you don't know the price yet. At 1:30 p.m., I hear the tenants moving furniture. My furniture. The dining chairs Eleanor reupholstered herself scrape against hardwood. Something heavy thumps. A laugh. The sound of life rearranging mine without asking. I open the filing cabinet in the study. It sticks, second door always did. Inside, old warranties, manuals for appliances I no longer own. A manila folder labeled estate in Eleanor's handwriting. I sit on the floor. My knees protest. I ignore them. Inside are copies I didn't know I'd kept. Bank statements. Wire confirmations. A ticket receipt from 2022, first class, one way. $6,400. Claire's name on it, not mine. I flip pages faster. There's a lease agreement, draft dated June 3rd, 3 weeks before today. My signature isn't on it. Hers is. Signed as attorney, in fact. I feel something tighten in my chest. Not pain. Not yet. Pressure. Like a valve refusing to cooperate. At 2:07, Mark calls again. They're claiming you agreed to short-term rental to offset costs, he says. Mortgage, maintenance, taxes. What costs? I ask. I paid everything. Silence. Henry, he says carefully. According to the account statements, you didn't. The line goes quiet except for my breathing. Your pension deposits stopped hitting your primary account in January, he continues. They've been rerouted. Same with the dividend payouts. Where? I ask. Another pause. To trust you're listed as beneficiary of, Mark says, but not trustee. I laugh then, loud, sharp. It scares even me. So I'm paying rent, I say, to live in my own house. And now I'm subletting my bedroom. Mark doesn't contradict me. By evening, the house smells like someone else's dinner. Garlic, butter, youth. I eat a can of soup, standing up. Eleanor's bowl. I don't wash it. Let it sit. Let the house remember who used to be here. At 8:46 p.m., Claire finally calls. Dad, she says brightly. Too brightly. We need to talk. We're talking, I answer. You rented out my bedroom. A beat. Then a sigh practiced. You're being dramatic. That old phrase. The one she learned young. This is temporary, she continues. You weren't using the space. And with everything costing so much, everything I paid for, I interrupt. Silence stretches. I imagine her kitchen, marble counters, stainless steel, the life she built with my signatures. You should have listened to Mark, she says finally, irritation creeping in. He fills your head with paranoia. No, I reply softly. He warned me. He waited. She exhales. We'll talk tomorrow. No, I say. Tomorrow we'll talk with subpoenas. She hangs up. I sit alone in the dark living room. The television off, the walls unfamiliar. Paper doesn't bleed, but it cuts. And I was done pretending I couldn't feel it. Mark schedules the meeting for Thursday at 10:00 a.m. Neutral ground. His phrase, not mine. The conference room is on the 12th floor of a glass building downtown that used to house an insurance company before it became a nest of consultants. The elevator smells like disinfectant and impatience. I arrive early because that's what men do when they've been robbed politely. I wear the gray blazer Eleanor liked, the one with the loose button I never fixed. It feels important to look like myself. Claire arrives at 10:04. She doesn't come alone. She brings her husband Daniel, and a woman I don't recognize who carries a leather folder and looks at me like I'm a line item. The woman sits without being invited. Daniel doesn't sit at all at first. He hovers, arms crossed, protector posture. Useless, but committed. Claire kisses my cheek. Dad, she says softly, you look tired. I almost admire the nerve. Mark clears his throat. Thank you all for coming. He gestures for everyone to sit. Daniel finally does, exhaling like he's been inconvenienced by gravity. We're here to clarify the situation, Mark says. Specifically the lease, the trust, and the authority under which decisions were made. The woman with the folder smiles. I'm Linda Perez, financial advisor to the family. To the family. She says it like I'm a historical footnote. Claire folds her hands, nails manicured, pale pink. Eleanor never liked pink. Dad is confused, Claire begins. He's under a lot of stress. Mark raises a finger. Let's stick to facts. Facts. Linda slides documents across the table. Copies. Clean. Efficient. They fan out like playing cards. On April 17, 2021, she says, Mr. Henry Caldwell granted durable power of attorney to his daughter, Claire Caldwell. I nod. I remember. Under that authority, Linda continues, Claire acted in what she reasonably believed were his best financial interests. By renting out my bedroom, I say. Daniel leans forward. You weren't using it. Mark's eyes flick to him. Mr. Caldwell, Daniel, you're not the client. Daniel shrugs. Someone has to say it. I look at my daughter. Really, look? At the familiar curve of her mouth. At the way she doesn't quite meet my eyes anymore. You took $420,000 out of this house, I say calmly. Where is it? Claire exhales. The patience of someone explaining a spreadsheet to a child. Invested, she says. Diversified. Some losses. Some gains. How much is left? I ask. Linda answers. Approximately $138,000. The room goes very quiet. That money, I say, wasn't for gambling. Claire's face hardens. We didn't gamble. You flew first class to Barcelona, I say. You bought a car in cash. You paid off Daniel's student loans. Daniel shifts. That was compensation, Claire snaps. For years of emotional labor. I smile then, a thin thing. You buried my wife for free, I say. I buried my spine for you. Mark interjects. The issue here is fiduciary duty. The lease was necessary, Claire interrupts, to service the refinance, to maintain liquidity. I never needed liquidity, I say. I needed my house. Linda tilts her head. With respect, Mr. Caldwell, aging in place is expensive. That does it. I push my chair back. Stand. The room seems smaller, suddenly. I built that house with money I earned, I say. I paid it off twice. I didn't ask for help. I asked for time. Claire's voice sharpens. You asked for control. No, I reply. I asked not to be erased. Mark places a document on the table, slides it toward Claire. This, he says, is a notice of revocation. Effective immediately. Power of attorney terminated. Claire blinks. You can't. I can, I say. I just did. Mark continues. Additionally, we're filing for an emergency injunction to void the lease based on misrepresentation and self-dealing. Linda's smile falters for the first time. That will be contested, she says. Good, I answer. I'm tired of agreeing. Daniel stands abruptly. This is insane. He's not well. Mark looks at him evenly. Medical assessments say otherwise. Claire's phone buzzes. She glances at it. Color drains from her face. What? I ask. She swallows. The bank froze the trust account. I sit back down. Slowly. My knees thank me. That would be the subpoenas, Mark says. The meeting dissolves after that. Papers gathered, too, quickly. Chair scrape. Linda avoids my eyes. Daniel mutters something about lawyers. Claire lingers. Dad, she says quietly. We can fix this. I shake my head. You fixed it already. She leaves without another word. That evening when I return to the house, my house, there's a notice taped to the door. Unlawful occupancy. Notice to vacate. The tenants don't come out of the bedroom. I sleep in my own bed for the first time in days. It smells wrong, but it's mine. And for the first time since Eleanor died, I don't feel alone. I feel awake. It's the quiet that gives it away first. At 6:30 a.m., my house no longer smells like someone else's toothpaste. No running water upstairs. No clink of a pan that doesn't belong to me. The refrigerator hums the way it used to, steady, obedient, like a dog that remembers who feeds it. Legal quiet has a texture. It's thicker than peace, thinner than relief. The injunction comes through at 9:18 a.m. Mark calls. No greeting. They have 48 hours, he says. Sheriff-backed removal if necessary. I sit at the kitchen table with Eleanor's old legal pad in front of me. Yellow, faint coffee ring in the corner. My handwriting has grown smaller over the years, like it's trying not to take up too much space. Are you okay with that? Mark asks. I picture the brown leather shoes by the bench, the scarf in a stranger's hand, the word temporary like a blade wrapped in velvet. Yes, I say. I'm very okay. The sheriff arrives the next afternoon, middle-aged, polite, calls me sir the way men do when they mean it. Evan and the woman, her name turns out to be Rachel, stand in the doorway of my bedroom with their arms folded like they've rehearsed indignation. This isn't fair, Rachel says. We paid. You paid my daughter, I reply. So did I. They leave behind a dent in the carpet where the bed frame sat wrong. A cracked lampshade. Silence. The house exhales. But silence doesn't mean safety. At 7:42 p.m., my phone rings. Claire. I let it ring 3 times. Not out of spite. Out of curiosity. I want to hear what urgency sounds like when it has nowhere to go. Dad, she says breathless. We need to talk. Now. We already did, I answer. This is bigger than you think. That's almost funny. She shows up the next morning unannounced. No blazer this time. Jeans. Hair pulled back too tight. Daniel isn't with her. She stands in the doorway like a guest unsure whether she's welcome. You froze everything, she says. No, I correct. You did. Her eyes flash. The trust is under review. The bank flagged. Self-dealing. I finish. Yes, they tend to do that. She steps inside anyway. Looks around. Notices the absence. They're gone, she says. So am I reply. Just took longer. She sits at the table. Picks at a loose thread in her sleeve. I was trying to help, she says quietly. I pour coffee. 2 cups. Muscle memory betrays me. I slide one toward her. She doesn't touch it. You never asked what I wanted, I say. You asked what you could manage. Her voice cracks. Just a little. I was scared. So was I answer. I just didn't steal from you about it. The court date is set for 3 weeks later. Public record. Witnesses. Numbers read aloud without apology. The judge is younger than my daughter. She reads from the file with the patience of someone accustomed to disappointment. Unauthorized transfers totaling $312,000, she says. Personal expenditures misclassified as fiduciary costs. Leasing of primary residence without informed consent. Claire's lawyer objects. Words like intent and ambiguity float uselessly. Then Mark stands. He plays the recording. I didn't know he had it. Claire's voice fills the courtroom. Bright, casual, cruel in its confidence. He won't notice. He barely reads the statements anymore. A murmur ripples through the room. The judge pauses the audio. Ms. Caldwell, she says evenly, did you say this? Claire doesn't answer. That's enough. The ruling is clean. Surgical. Trust dissolved. Assets returned. Damages assessed. $96,000 plus legal fees. Claire doesn't look at me when it's over. Outside, the air smells like rain and old stone. I sit on the courthouse steps longer than I need to. Let the city move around me. Mark stands beside me. Doesn't speak. Knows better. At home that night, I open a drawer I haven't touched since Eleanor died. Inside is an insurance policy. Long-term care. Fully funded. Quietly maintained. Something Eleanor insisted on when she got sick. Just in case, she'd said. The beneficiary line is blank. I fill it in carefully. My name. I sleep deeply for the first time in months. Not because I won. Because I stopped losing. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The house doesn't celebrate. It doesn't throw light the way people expect after victory. No warmth rushes in. No music. No sense of restoration tied up with a ribbon. It just settles, like it's been holding its breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale. I spend the first morning alone doing nothing useful. I sit at the kitchen table with coffee that stays hot because no one interrupts me. I listen to the tick of the wall clock Eleanor bought at a flea market in '98. I noticed a crack in the ceiling near the hallway light I always meant to patch. Nothing miraculous happens, and that oddly feels like grace. The money returns in increments, not all at once. Wires take time. Banks apologize in templated language. I don't check the balance every hour. I check once. Then I close the laptop. It's enough. Mark calls to confirm the final filings. His voice has returned to neutral, which means the danger has passed. You did the right thing, he says. I did the late thing, I reply. He chuckles. Late is still better than never. After we hang up, I walk through the house room by room, not inspecting, remembering. The guest room smells like dust and cedar again. The study still creaks near the window where Eleanor used to lean while reading. In the bedroom, I strip the sheets and put the blue bedspread back on. The one she liked. It doesn't look fashionable. It looks honest. That night, I dream of nothing. Not her. Not Claire. Not courtrooms or papers or voices. Just darkness without pressure. Weeks pass. Claire doesn't call. She sends one email. Short, apologetic in the way people are when apology is cheaper than ownership. I don't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Some conversations only exist to reopen doors you've already closed for a reason. I change the locks anyway. Not because I'm afraid. Because I've learned what access costs. On a Tuesday in early October, I meet with a realtor. Not to sell, to list conditions. She's young, efficient. She talks about market timing and comps and right sizing. I'm not moving, I tell her. She pauses, recalculates. I'm documenting. I continue. That this house is mine. That I live here by choice. That any future decision will be mine alone. She nods slowly, writes it down like it matters. It does. In the evenings, I cook again. Simple things. Soup with too much pepper. Eggs the way Eleanor liked them. Edges just brown enough to argue about. I eat at the table. I wash the dishes right away. No crumbs. No accusations. Sometimes I think about Claire. About the child she was. About the adult she chose to become. Then I stop. Not everything needs tending. One afternoon, while sorting mail, I find a folded note tucked into an old book. Eleanor's handwriting. Slanted. Confident. If you're reading this, it means I was right to worry. Don't let anyone make a life out of you. I sit with that for a long time. The house creaks. The clock ticks. The world keeps moving without asking my permission. And for the first time in years, that doesn't feel like loss. It feels like ownership. Not of money. Not of property. Of myself. I turn off the light, lock the door, and go to bed in a house that finally remembers my name.